Now, the French Prime Minister is leading the campaign for Emmanuel Macron's Renaissance Party. Take a listen to what one passerby had to tell Gabriel Attal.
You're all right, but you'll have to tell the president to shut his mouth. This is a legislative election.
We're voting for the Prime Minister.
Look, listen, you were good in the education ministry, but the president, oh, he is putting us in the crap.
We can now bring in a French politics editor, Marc Perelman. Marc, good afternoon. That anti-Macron sentiment is palpable among large segments of French society, isn't it?
Well, clearly, this is obviously just illustration and anecdote. But when you look at the polls, and this is something probably Emmanuel Macron and his entourage didn't perceive, is that the vote for the European elections, which prompted him to call for the snap election, is also very much an anti-Macron vote. He was re-elected back in 2022. That's true, against Marine Le Pen. Yes. However, in the ensuing legislative elections, he only garnered a relative majority, which has been a problem. And one of the reasons why he felt that he needed to really try to get a majority by calling for a snap election. What he didn't perceive is that this was already a way of saying, well, okay, we trust you for a second mandate, but not with an absolute majority, only a relative majority. And now those European elections were clearly also an anti-Macron vote. And this is why many of the pollsters are saying Macron didn't realize that this was also a vote against him. And so calling for snap elections is also allowing this anti-Macron feeling to really be seen in the polls and probably in the ballot box. What's more worrying for him is that those are not only people from the left, from the right, or the far right that always voted against Emmanuel Macron. Those are partly the core of his voters. Those who elected him in 2017, re-elected him in 2022, are essentially looking for the exit and trying to find alternative. And this is why this is extremely worrying for the French president.
Now, normally we don't have people from Emmanuel Macron's own party disagreeing with the president, but now some within his own camp are expressing themselves and their discontent by his decision-making.
Yes, the press is full of accounts quoting, most of the time anonymously, but sometimes on the record, Macron faithful, loyalists, those who really campaigned for him, were elected with him, they're furious at his decision. They don't understand. They say this is a crazy decision. He's shooting himself in the foot. He is essentially drowning our ship, and we're going to drown with him. And this is why Emmanuel Macron's plan was to really have a blitzkrieg, be all the time speaking during his campaign. And starting with the Prime Minister, we just saw Gabriel Attal, everyone told Macron, we don't want to see you. We don't want to hear you. We don't want your face on the leaflets we're handing out to people because they're getting thrown back at us. So there is really a concern within his own camp that the magic wand is not there anymore. And to the contrary, Macron is really creating more and more divisions in his own camp. And those who are going before the voters are extremely worried and are extremely angry at him because they feel that he only made this decision with a very tight circle of advisors without telling anyone, without asking for the advice of anyone, because they probably knew that everyone in his entourage would have told him, this is not the right decision. You're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it.
Let's talk about the National Rally because, of course, polls have them leading the pack. The man who would be up for the Prime Minister's job if they were to come out on top is Jordan Bardella. And he said he would only become Prime Minister if he's able to secure an absolute majority. What is the likelihood of that happening?
Well, it's still pretty much uncertain what will happen. What we are seeing in the polls, and we have to wait for a few days to pass because the campaign just kicked off. We have unusual alliances on the left, unusual weakening of the presidential majority, and obviously a strong national rally. What they're telling us is that the national rally arrives on top, garnering a third of the votes, followed by the new leftist alliance with 28% of the votes. In terms of seats, the National Rally would have the strongest bloc. But for now, they would be short of the absolute majority. It's 289 seats at the National Assembly. And this is why you hear Jordan Bardella hedging a little bit, saying, you know, I can only be prime minister if I have a strong mandate. This is probably a way for him to prompt the voters to go to vote, but also realizing that if he has a hung parliament or only a relative majority, he might face the same problems as Emmanuel Macron has faced in the past 2 years. And in addition, he would still have a president. The president is still a very powerful figure under the Fifth Republic. He controls foreign policy, he controls military affairs, and he has a say on decrees and nominations and so on. The last episodes of the so-called cohabitation between the president and the prime minister from the opposition camp have proven that the president in the end, tends to gain the upper hand. So Jordan Bardella, yes, he wants to win, but he wants to be sure that he has a real win, meaning an absolute majority, because if not, he feels this could be a trap for the National Rally, especially because everyone is already looking ahead at the 2027 presidential election.
We have under 2 weeks to go, which now it seems an eternity in French politics, doesn't it? We'll see how this story pans out. Thank you very much for that, Marc. Marc Perelman there.